The Water Fairy, the Nixie of the Mill Pond. Once upon a time, in a peaceful village surrounded by lush green hills and shimmering streams, there lived a kind-hearted miller and his loving wife. Their days were calm, their home warm, and their mill flourished beside a gentle flowing river. Each year their fortune grew, and they lived with joy and gratitude. But then, a shadow of misfortune crept into their lives. One by one, they lost their wealth. First the grain, then the customers, and finally, the mill itself began to decay. They tried everything to recover what they had lost, but luck had turned its back on them. One gloomy morning, the miller walked toward the old mill with heavy steps. As he neared the lake beside it, he heard a soft splash and the sound of water gently stirring. Curious and uneasy, he looked up, and there, rising from the shimmering blue surface, was a beautiful water fairy with silver hair and eyes that glowed like moonlight. The miller froze in fear and turned to run, but the fairy called him by his name. Her voice was calm, almost like a song floating on the breeze. "Why do you carry such sorrow in your heart, dear miller?" she asked gently. At first, he said nothing, but her voice soothed him like a lullaby, and soon he told her everything, how he had once been prosperous and how everything had slipped away like sand through his fingers. The fairy smiled kindly and said, "Do not be afraid. I can restore all you have lost. You will be wealthier than ever, but you must promise me one thing." The miller looked up, eyes wide. "You must give me the child your wife is carrying." Blinded by hope and unaware of what had just been asked, the miller agreed without hesitation. He thanked the fairy and rushed home with a heart full of excitement. But as he reached his cottage, the maid greeted him with sparkling eyes. "Congratulations, sir! You have a son, a healthy baby boy." At that moment, the color drained from the miller's face. His joy was replaced by dread. The water fairy had known. She had tricked him. His legs trembled as he walked to his wife. "Why are you not smiling?" "We have a son," his wife said softly, holding the newborn in her arms. With a heavy heart, the miller told her everything. Shocked and heartbroken, they promised each other they would never let the fairy take their child. Years passed. The boy grew tall and strong, and he became a gifted hunter. His arrows never missed, and he had the gentlest heart in the village. One day, the lord of the region noticed the boy's skill and invited him to live and work on his estate. There, the young hunter met a kind and beautiful girl who worked as a maid. She had eyes like morning skies and a laugh like the jingling of bells. Love bloomed between them, and the Lord, touched by their affection, gifted them a small cottage in the woods. They married, and happiness followed them like sunshine after rain. But one morning, as the hunter wandered deep into the forest, he spotted a rare, graceful deer. He followed it, not realizing he was near the lake, the same lake where the fairy had once appeared. After the hunt, he bent down to wash his hands in the water. The moment his fingers touched the surface, a sudden ripple spread across the lake. Before he could react, pale arms reached out and pulled him into the deep. That evening, when he didn't return, his wife's heart filled with fear. She searched the woods desperately until she reached the lake. There, on the shore, she saw his bow, his quiver, and a few drops of water. She screamed his name. No answer. She crossed to the other side of the lake and cried out again, tears rolling down her cheeks. She cursed the silence, cursed the stillness, and then, exhausted, she fell asleep beside the water. In her dream, a gentle old woman appeared. With a warm smile, she said, "Come find me. I will help you." The next morning, the young woman wandered through the forest until she discovered a small cottage, tucked between moss-covered stones. The old woman welcomed her kindly and handed her a golden comb. "Brush your hair with this," she said, "and throw it into the lake." The young woman obeyed. As the comb touched the water, a small wave rose, and for a moment, she saw her husband's face, just his face, floating beneath the surface. The next night, the old woman gave her a golden flute. "Play it, my dear, from sunset until the moon fades." She played a melody so full of longing that even the stars seemed to listen. Another wave came. Her husband appeared again, this time his face and upper body. She reached for him, but the waters pulled him back. On the third day, the old woman gave her a golden spinning wheel. "Do not stop spinning," she whispered, "no matter what." All day and all night, the young woman spun the thread with love and hope, and when the sun rose, the lake stirred once more, and her husband stepped out from its depths. Whole and alive, they embraced, laughing through tears. But suddenly, a swirl of magic surrounded them, and in a blink, they turned into frogs. The lake's waves crashed, separating them, casting each to a different shore. When the waters calmed, they were human again, but now they were lost to each other. Time passed. One evening, in a quiet valley under the full moon, a shepherd sat by a fire playing a soft, sorrowful tune on his flute. A young woman passing by stopped and listened, tears welling in her eyes. "I once played a tune like that," she whispered, "under a full moon." And my beloved's face rose from the lake. The shepherd dropped his flute, looked up, and in that moment, he knew her. They ran to each other, arms wide, hearts racing, and never again did they part. Moral of the story: cherish love, keep your promises, and believe that even after the deepest sorrow, joy can be found again